Hello, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It feels so surreal kind of saying that, honestly, because this is my first official video that I'm actually doing for the channel itself. And as you guys can see by the title, it is going to be a reading wrap up from January to April with all the books that I read in between there. So throughout the entire first half of this year, I've read about 19 books, but this one's only going to contain about 18 of those books because the 19th book I actually finished earlier this month in May. So that's not going to be talked about in this video. But I'm basically just going to be going through all the books that I read within January, February, March, and April, giving a little bit of my thoughts. I've already put some of my thoughts out there on my Instagram, which is Samantha Faith Reads and Writes, along with my TikTok, which is smith72. And you guys can already see some of my thoughts and reviews essentially of the books, but I thought I'd come on here and just show you a little bit about them, tell you what format I read these in originally as well too. I have them up on my phone currently as well too. So we're just going to dive right into January. So in January, I read a total of 6 books within the month. I can't remember how many pages I read off the top of my head, but I'm just basically going to be going through the books. In total, read 6 books. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first one, this is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I love Stephen King so much, and this is technically not a first time read. This was a reread back in December of 2024. I was going through a really bad reading slump. So I decided that I would reread one of my favorites, and it was the first time I also annotated my book as well too. If you can see the little tabs in there. I'm starting to get into a little bit of annotation as well, but mostly with the rereads, and you guys will probably see that a little bit later as well too. But Pet Sematary, this is a 5-star. It didn't change from the first time I read it. I originally read it back in 2023, around November/December of that time, honestly. And it's just, this story is one of my favorites, but it's also one of his scariest novels to date, in my opinion. And I've read it before, and I think this one is so much scarier. That did not make any sense whatsoever. But essentially, it follows this dude. His name is Dr. Lewis Creed. He takes a new job up in Maine, and he settles down in this rural town of Ludlow, Maine, which is, I think it's a little bit of ways from Derry within the actual Stephen King universe itself, but do not quote me on that, to be honest with you. And then it's hoping for a new beginning. Then there is an undercurrent of danger that exists within Ludlow, and specifically with the trucks outside of the Creed's home. They travel by a little bit too quickly. Then they see that there is a makeshift pet cemetery across the road, out back near the woods, essentially. There are these warnings for Lewis, both real and from the depths of his nightmares, that he shouldn't venture beyond the borders of a little graveyard. The story kind of goes from there. But one of the key reasons why I really love this book is the storytelling aspect. And one thing I will say, if you are getting into Stephen King, do not start with this book. Wait until you've read maybe a couple of his books, because I love this book, don't get me wrong, but I've read a couple of his books from the block. So I know exactly what I'm getting into whenever I read this book. But my second time reading this book, I felt all the emotions all over again. I knew what was going to happen, but I didn't realize how much foreshadowing was going to be at the beginning of the book to lead towards the end of the book specifically, because this book is broken up into not 4 parts. It's broken up into 3 parts. And for anybody who knows Stephen King, you know exactly how this book is broken up and how exactly he writes his books as well too. And it's just such an interesting way to be able to convey the story as well. It's also one of his more shorter books as well too. It's around the 300 and 390. Yeah, it's around 390 pages roughly. The reason why this stayed a 5-star for me is because what originally made me want to give it a 5-star when I first read it is just the sheer insanity and the sheer like supernatural things that can be alluded to, and also just the talk of death, because this book heavily talks about death. It's called Pet Cemetery for a reason. It doesn't just talk about pets' death, it talks about other people's deaths as well too. Also, by the ending is very ambiguous, so you think that there could be another story after this if he wanted to, but it works perfectly fine as a standalone novel as well. And that's one of the things that I love about his writing. He doesn't need to just completely shut the door on it to be able to make sense. And just the questions that we have at the end, it's such an interesting book, but 5 stars. I 100% recommend this if you love Stephen King, or if you are a little bit not new to the horror genre. This will definitely scare you, but it will also be just a grand old time, honestly. I loved it. I love this book so much, and I'll recommend it to people who I think could handle it as well. Okay, so the next one I don't have in the physical form because I read it on my Kindle, and it was This Winter by Alice Oseman, which is the short little novella in between Heartstoppers Volume 4 and Heartstopper Volume 5. I wanted to read that before diving into Heartstopper number 5 as well. Gave that a 4-star. Really, really enjoyed it, honestly. It's one of the better novellas that I think I've read personally, but I love anything that Alice Oseman writes. I love what they do. She's just an amazing, person in general. And I read the Heartstopper series at the end of 2024, and I just finished it up so far, at least for Heartstopper Volume 5. I loved it, honestly. A little bit into This Winter. This Winter, if you guys have watched the show, you guys know that it is based off of the Christmas episode in season 3, I believe. Correction coming from editor Sam, what I meant to say is that the Christmas episode within season 3 is based off of the little novella, and I'm about to explain exactly what this little novella is about, but it was kind of killing me, and as I was watching it back, I'm like, what the hell were you saying? So I thought I'd come on here and clarify, honestly. Back to the actual explanation. It follows both Charlie and Victoria and their little brother within the comics, because the little brother is not in the TV show. I don't know if that was a creative decision or not, but it follows the 3 siblings through a single day, Christmas Day, and it just kind of follows what has been going on after Volume 4 and that type of stuff, and you just get to see how each of them think. It's a novel with some pictures related to the graphic novels and such, but This Winter, it's most importantly a novel itself, honestly. So just know that that is what you're getting into when it comes to that. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, honestly. If you guys haven't read the Heartstopper series, I would 100% recommend that you do. I love it. It's a 6-star series for me, honestly. It's so beautiful for so many reasons, honestly. I really think that everybody should read it at least once in their lifetime, honestly. Okay, so I hope this doesn't cause any controversy, because I don't want to promote this author that much, but I've also wanted to read this series for a really, really long time, and this is the year that I decided to do it, honestly. But my third book that I read was Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book, obviously, in the Throne of Glass series. This is a very, very long series. I feel like everybody knows what this series is. This is my first time actually reading it, because I never read this series when I was younger. I didn't really read much when I was younger, but this is my first time reading it. I gave it a 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it, honestly. It was very quick for me to get through. I read it within a span of I think 5 or 6 days right before my second semester of junior year started, and it was an overall pretty good read, to be honest with you. The story was interesting, and this is not the first book that that I've read by Sarah J. Maas. I actually read the ACOTAR series last year in 2024, and I don't really know how to feel about that series. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I don't, because I just don't feel the same way about like some of the characters and such, and it just was, I don't know, it just wasn't, I don't think the ACOTAR series was for me, but the way that this story is told and the way that the rest of the books are told, I think I like this a little bit better than I do with the ACOTAR series itself, honestly, and I've only read 2 of the books so far, but this one, I feel like everybody knows what this book series is about, but it's basically about this girl named Selena. She is released from prison and is to serve as the king's champion. She has to go through these trials essentially, and she gets provoked by the crown prince. Captain of the guard will protect her, and then this princess from a faraway country will befriend her, and you basically just kind of follow her through that story and such. The actual story itself was very, very compelling. Mostly, I keep wanting to compare this to ACOTAR, but it helps because in this story, we were very much shown, how do I want to put this? We were shown a lot of the time when it came to the world itself. We were shown rather than told about what was going to happen within the story, and we were taken along this adventure with Selena and a couple of the other characters that you see in this novel as well. And I liked that storytelling a little bit better than the way ACOTAR was. ACOTAR was very much like a tell and not show type of vibe, but this one is a show yet also kind of tell, while also remaining mysterious. Like, it feels like with the reader itself, like when we're reading, it almost seems like Sarah thinks that we can figure out what's going on in this world by ourselves, which I kind of like, honestly. I like having a little bit of mystery to the world, and I don't like to be shown everything. While with her other series in the past, very much seems like that she's just like telling us, honestly. I did thoroughly enjoy this. 3.5, not a bad rating by me, honestly, and I mostly just like read it physically, honestly. I have all of the books on my shelf like back there. I don't know if I can zoom in or not with the editing process later, but we shall see. But 3rd book of January read as well. Not a bad start to a fantasy series as well too. The 4th book I read in January was Heartless Hunter. Now this was actually a book club book of mine. I read this as soon as I got done with Throne of Glass, and technically I mostly listened to it as well. It was definitely an interesting read. I gave it a 4.5 star. I really did like it, honestly, mostly because the way that this story was, it's very much like not like any other like romantasy series or like romantasy duology or romantasy like fantasy I had ever read before in the past. You follow this girl named Rune Winters. She is a witch, but she's hiding in plain sight because in the society where she is, witches will get prosecuted and killed because just the way that the society is. She's been hiding essentially in plain sight. Then she gets word about this witch that she needs to save, and in order to do that, she wants to get closer to the guard, like the captain of the guard for their like place essentially. I can't remember what exactly this place is called, to be honest with you, but it's like an enemies to lovers with like a witch and a witch hunter and such. The witch hunter's name is Gideon. He does not like witches. You know that very, very quickly. And I mostly listen, I think I told you guys this, but I mostly listened to this on audiobook, and I really kind of liked listening to the audiobook version. I definitely want to do that with the 2nd book, which I think that's Rebel Witch. I bought it a couple months ago, honestly, but I do not remember. I'll put it somewhere on the screen, honestly, if I got it right at some point. But the way that the structure was of this, I didn't see the major plot twist coming, even though any other person could have guessed the major plot twist, essentially. And yeah, it was an interesting read, honestly. God, it's weird. It's hard kind of going back in your brain to try and figure out like why you love this in the beginning, honestly. I can't remember what exactly I said, but like the enemies to lovers, I think honestly, out of all of the fantasy series that I've read where there's like an enemies to lovers, Rune and Gideon are 100% true enemies to love. But these two are definitely on the different sides of the war, and there's not really a war going on really, but they're basically on two different sides, which is enemies to lovers very much coded, honestly. And I really liked it, honestly. I don't really have much of an opinion on the series in total. I do know it's a duology. I need to read the second one. I'll probably do that probably later this year, but I have no idea. But Heartless Hunter gave that a 4.5 stars. Thoroughly enjoyed it, honestly. You guys might like it, honestly. Great little introduction as well, too. And I'm interested to see where we go from like the story, because I'm thinking back and I'm remembering some of the plot twists and I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, great little introduction to a duology as well too. So then the next book that I read, it was on my Kindle, but it was Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. And I originally, when I read it, I gave it a 2.5 star, but I've since gone back and changed it to a 2 star. Now, this was my first Ali Hazelwood book, and I got a recommendation for this from one of my friends who loves Ali Hazelwood personally. They love her books, and I'm like, I saw that it was on sale for like $2.99, so I bought it because, you know, I like to take deals like that, and seeing like when those reduced Kindle prices happen, it's just easier that way and such. But I can't remember what the girl's name is off the top of my head, but we followed these two scientists who they work at NASA. I believe they're neuroscientists, I think. I don't even remember much of the story, to be honest with you. They had a little bit of a falling out during grad school. They went to the same grad school together, and the girl, she was engaged in a relationship with this dude for a really, really long time. And then Levi, I think his name is Levi, but the male main character in Love on the Brain, he saw that she was together with this other guy, and he just started being like very, very rude to her. There's like no reason why he should have been so rude to her, honestly. The science talk, don't get me wrong, I know my science, honestly, but the science talk was so unbearable sometimes, and I don't like to be so negative when it comes to stuff, but I just did not like Love on the Brain that much. One of the things, honestly, is there was a constant talk about this one scientist named Madame Curie, and don't get me wrong, I love her. I think that she has done great stuff for being a scientist and such, and being one of like the pioneering female scientists and such at the beginning, but there was just so much talk about her that it just got so overwhelming, and it was just it was insane, to be honest with you. It was really, really insane. And then there's a romance and such like that. And I think the trope that they use is enemies to lovers, no, they are not enemies, honestly. It is more dislike to lovers, if anything, honestly, for that trope. And I just, oh God, I keep thinking back. But yeah, I just did not like that book. And then I was considering DNFing it, but then I got way too far into the story itself. I tell you what, when I got to the last half of it, the story was just like, what's going on? Where are we going from here? And then the last 75% of the book, I remember there was this one scene where it was regarding to a conflict that was going on within the book. And for some reason, it felt like a soap opera / Scooby-Doo type of episode where quote unquote villain within the story itself, it was just, it literally gave the same vibe of I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids. Like it literally gave that vibe. I just did not like it very much. And in the moment, I felt kind of bad. So that's why I gave it a 2.5 in the beginning. But as I've sat on it and thought about it, it is definitely a 2-star. I did not like that book. I'm sorry. I didn't like it. I'm sorry. I didn't like it. I did not like it whatsoever, honestly. But if you guys like Allie Hazelwood, please do not come for me. I plan on giving her, she's got 2 more chances. Whenever I'm trying out new authors, I always give them 3 chances, essentially, if I like their books. And she's got 2 more chances. So we shall see if I do end up liking her or if I end up liking specific things from her, honestly. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Love on the Brain, 2-star. I would not really recommend it, to be honest with you. Okay, friends, this is my last book that I read in January, which was Heartstopper Volume 5. This is a 6-star. It is 100% a 6-star. I love Nick and Charlie so fucking much, honestly. They are 2 of my favorite romantic couples I have ever read about within a story, honestly. And that's saying a lot, specifically with one couple that I have in mind that's coming up in my February wrap up, essentially. This series has my entire heart. I am going to be so sad when the final volume and also when the movie comes out of Heartstopper as well too. I love these characters so much. I love the side characters especially. It's just such a heartwarming story. And this series, I tell you what, it is such a love letter to the queer community and such, and it is just such a lovely space. And it's just it's something that I feel like a lot of young people need, especially right now, honestly. Heartstopper is definitely one of those stories that I love and has really healed a part of me when I was very, very young. I can't really talk much about Volume 5 essentially that much without going into the rest of the series, but maybe I will do something later in the future, honestly, regarding this series. And I read this all in one day because these books, they're graphic novels and they are really, really easy to binge. You can read them in legitimately just one sitting and you're fine, honestly. You can read them very, very quickly, honestly. It is just so beautiful and just I don't know how else to describe it, honestly. Heartstopper legitimately has my heart. I keep a book bracket type of thing where I take my favorite books from each month, and this one has my heart because it's a 6-star. And for me, 6 stars are not easy to come across, honestly. They really only happen once in a blue moon, honestly. And this guy is definitely a 6-star in my opinion. I love Nick and Charlie and all of their friends and just everything that they've gone through, and just so much just them being themselves, and you get to learn more about them. And I recommend the whole entire series, honestly. It's a 6-star. I 100% recommend this series, honestly. Okay, so now diving into my February reading wrap up, I read about 5 books within the month of February. 2 of those I read in the physical form, 2 of those I read in audiobook form, and then one of them I read in Kindle format. And the first book that I finished and read in February was, of course, The Wedding People by Alison Eshbach. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. But this book, I think it released sometime earlier this year. I think, honestly, I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4-star. I genuinely enjoyed it. I heard so many people liking that they listened to this on audiobook, and that's how I listened to it the majority of the time. I had the physical copy, movie, but I mostly listened to it on audiobook, and it just made the experience so much better, honestly. This is obviously a literary fiction, of course, and it follows this girl. Hold on. It follows this girl, technically this woman named Phoebe, and she arrives in Newport, Rhode Island at the Grand Cornwall Inn. She's wearing a green dress and some gold high heels. There's not a bag in sight. She's alone, but she's immediately mistaken to be part of the wedding party because there's a wedding going on this weekend that she decides to go in. And she's the only one that's not there for the big event, of course, because she's dreamed of coming to this place for years, but it was mostly with her husband, but her husband is no longer there. And there's a reason why she is there by herself, but it doesn't really tell you the reason why on the blurb. So I'm not going to tell you the reason why, but it is such an interesting thing because when the bride of the wedding realizes what Phoebe's doing, her name is Lila and Phoebe, they become kind of fast friends because they're strangers and they feel like that they can tell each other pretty much everything because that's that. They are strangers. This book basically follows the format of going through the wedding reception, all of the stages to a wedding, honestly, the bridal shower, the rehearsal dinner, or whatever it's called, honestly. It goes through those different stages, and it is just such a cool and such fascinating story that it made me think so much about life in general, honestly. And I'm new to the literary fiction world. So far, all of the literary fiction books that I've read, I have loved every single one of them. And this is 100% one that I love as well. It's a 4-star for me. I almost gave it 5 stars, but there was something holding it back just a little bit, honestly, from giving it that 5-star. But this is a solid 4-star. I do think that everybody, especially when you are either in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, basically, if you're an adult, you should read this book, honestly. I do think that you can get some valuable lessons from teenagers reading this as well, too. But if you are well into your adulthood, or if you're just starting out in adulthood, this is such an amazing book to read, honestly. I 100% recommend it to pretty much almost everybody, honestly, that I know would like this book, honestly. I think people would like it, honestly. And there's a reason why so many people love it, honestly. It's just one of my new favorite books, honestly, of this year. And I definitely plan on rereading this sometime in the future, honestly. But yeah, 4 stars, 100 highly percent recommend this book, honestly. So my second book that I read in February was King of Sloth by Anna Huang. And this is 100% a 6-star. If you guys have seen me like somewhere else on the internet, you guys know exactly what I mean when I say Anna Huang is a fucking queen. I love her so much. She's one of my favorite romance authors of all goddamn time. King of Sloth, it's the 4th book in the Kings of Sin series, and this one follows specifically Javier Costello. I tell you what, I have not looked at the audio version of this. She spells his name as Xavier Costello, but I know that he's Latino, so I don't know if it's pronounced Javier or Xavier, but I'm just gonna go with Javier for now, honestly.
And past Sam, you would be correct. The correct pronunciation is Javier Costello, because I did not listen to the audiobook of this. I read it, but the way that it is spelled like Xavier, but the correct pronunciation is Javier Costello. So yeah, just a little cleanup and such like that, essentially, from editor Sam here. Okay, back to the video.
But it follows Javier Costello, and he represents the sin of sloth, but it follows him, and he doesn't really want his family's empire. He's not really ambitious in that way. They're all billionaire romances, like the King of Sin series is, and he also has women that are throwing themselves at him, except for his publicist, which enters Salone Kensington. She is a very powerful publicist who is used to dealing with difficult clients. Xavier has been one of her clients for years. We've seen them interact with other books within the series itself. It follows their love story. And one of the things that I personally love, I probably knew that I was going to like this book, but I don't like annotating new books, specifically books that I haven't read before, because I don't know if I'm going to like them. But specifically, the one thing that I knew that I was going to love from this book, and the reason why I was going to love this book, is because of the dedication. And the dedication is to every woman who's ever been told to quote unquote smile more. Fuck that. Do whatever you want. It's such a beautiful thing, in my opinion. And I have been told multiple times in my lifetime, especially when I was really, really young, when I was going through some stuff, you should smile more, honestly. You look good with a smile. And it just made me hurt even more. And I love that. Like, I could see myself in Salome. I saw myself in Salome so many times, and it legitimately healed me seeing her and Xavier get together. And also I saw a lot of myself in Xavier as well too. Not Xavier, Javier. I saw myself in Javier so much, honestly. And I feel like both of them are definitely meant for each other, honestly. And this book is spicy. It's not as spicy, in my opinion, as the other Kings of Sin series, in my opinion, but there is definitely some spice. And I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, but in this book is the first time I ever cried while like reading a smut scene, because specifically at the end, like with the aftercare and such, there was just something so sweet about the moment. I can't remember which scene it was off the top of my head. I could probably, if I reread it now, I could probably like tell you honestly. But I just loved this story so much. I loved reading them. I loved also with the conflict of Javier needing to take over his family's empire and such. You get to see a lot of family issues on both of their sides. And it is just such a beautiful book. I knew I was going to like King of Sloth, and the fifth book recently just came out, which is King of Envy. I have that currently on my bookshelf. Technically, it's on my TBR card because hopefully I can get to it later. I just knew that I would love this. And Anna, she has slowly become one of my favorite writers of all time, honestly. And I first got my introduction to her through the Twisted Love series, like the Twisted series itself, and then moved on to Kings of Sin. And then I have her Gods of the Game series and her first series, the If Love series. And I don't know what it is. Not a lot of, some people like her, some people don't. I'm one of the people who loves Anna and her writing. She does smut very well, in my opinion. She does real life stuff, and she is so diverse with her characters. It is not even funny. She does so much diversity with her characters. It is just amazing. It is amazing, honestly. Like, I love seeing the different representation of different cultures within every single book that she does. There's always a little bit of culture, and not even a little bit. There's a lot of culture within the books that are related to the main characters. And it's such a beautiful thing, honestly. With this one, specifically out of Kings of Sin, this one has my heart, honestly, and I'm really excited to continue on with the rest of the series itself as well. And I would recommend this series, but I do think that if you are going to read Anna Huang for the first time, you should read the Twisted series, because that's where you get, like, I don't know if it's her best. I really don't know, honestly. I don't like saying authors having their best work, essentially, because everything to them is their best work, honestly. But I just think that if you are wanting to get into Anna Huang, you should start with the Twisted series, and then you can go on to Kings of Sin, because it is so amazing, honestly. But Yeah, I love it. I love this book so much. It's a 6 star. My second 6 star of the year as well, too. And then the third book that I read in February was Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. This is obviously the second book in the Throne of Glass series. Can't really talk about this one that much either, but I gave it the same rating as Throne of Glass, which was 3.5 stars, mostly because as I was reading this book, I kind of guessed the ending like about 50% of the way through the book. So that's what kind of really tanked the rating down for me. I still enjoyed it. It was a very, very quick book, honestly. I started reading this near the end / beginning of February and such like that, like right after I finished Throne of Glass. And it was just a good sequel book. I will say this did not suffer from second book syndrome, in my opinion. This really did not suffer from it, honestly. We literally jumped right into the story. We had conflict. We had this thing that we needed to resolve, honestly. And we still have conflict at the end of this book as well, too, which leads into the rest of the series, of course. But it was just so amazing and just like so interesting the way that the story was going to be told, because I didn't know where Sarah was going to take the story, to be honest with you, and I'm kind of happy that I didn't know. The only reason why it is getting the 3.5 star is because of me guessing the ending, honestly. Like, I guessed the ending like word for word, essentially, honestly, because there were things that were adding up just a little bit too quickly, in my opinion, and I came to the conclusion really, really fast, honestly. But I do enjoy the story. I am currently in the middle of the third book, but the third book is moving so slow, honestly, that I need to kind of psych myself into reading the book itself. And it's one of those interesting things, honestly. And it might have been because I took a break from this world for a little too long, in my opinion, but I have no idea, to be honest with you. Yeah, 3.5 stars. I'm definitely continuing on with the series, honestly. It wasn't bad. It was definitely not a bad second book either. All right. And then my fourth book, wow, I am losing track of time, honestly. But my fourth book that I read in February was Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I technically read this for a Black History Month, essentially. Sorry, there's a bird looking at me through the window currently. But I read this for Black History Month, and this was my first ever Kennedy Ryan book. It is gorgeous, in my opinion. I love this like cover just in general, honestly. Like, look at that. That's gorgeous, in my opinion, to be honest with you. I listened to this on audiobook and I gave it a 4 star. I really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the realness, and I understand why so many people love Kennedy Ryan as an author, because she's good. She's really, really good at what she does. And she's probably one of the most real fiction writers I think I've ever read, in my opinion, honestly. She's very much real when it comes to the fiction, honestly. Like, these two characters, like Yasmin and Josiah, they are 100% people that are out there in the world. I could be convinced if somebody told me that these two people were real in what they were going through in their lives, honestly. Basically, their love, Jasmine and Josiah's, was supposed to last forever, but then when life basically delivered blow after blow after blow, their marriage couldn't be saved, and in turn they divorced each other. But Yasmin wasn't prepared for how her life fell apart, but she started finding the joy in it again as well. She and Josiah have found a good rhythm with co-parenting there, along with their thriving restaurant as well. And it's very much a second chance romance, which second chance romance is very much interesting. This is only my second book that I've read where it's a divorced couple with a second chance romance. I liked it, honestly, but for me, I think I've noticed that, especially when it comes to second chance romances with divorced couples, I need flashbacks and I need reasons to why they fell in love with each other and why they are good for each other in the first place. And we didn't really get that in this book that much. I mean, we got flashbacks to like right when the divorce was happening and right what like caused the divorce itself, but I never really got anything in the past of them working together and that type of stuff, honestly. And the reason why also this book is getting such a high rating for me is because, one, their kids within this story, I see myself in at least the majority of them, especially in their older kid, Deja specifically. Oh my God. I feel like that Kennedy Ryan must have written like a little bit about me and put it into Deja. But, anyways, I truly love this book. And I got the last two books in this little Skyland series, which is This Could Be Us and Can't Get Enough. I'm super duper excited to read those books by her, honestly. But this book was just, it was gorgeous. I really loved this book. I legitimately loved this book so freaking much, honestly. It is heavy. I will say that. There was an author's note at the beginning that she writes that is very heavy, honestly. And it deals with heavy topics a lot and lots of triggers. And if you do get triggered, honestly, please look at the author's note before you dive into the story, because it really does talk about some triggering things. And I'm not even a mother, and I got triggered by one of the things that really hurt my soul. And I can't even imagine how actual women go through this as well, too, honestly. And it's just something that is beautiful, but also there's a love story, because love stories happen a lot within these hard human circumstances, honestly. But this is a 4-star. I 100% would recommend it to everybody, honestly. But do look up the triggers if you do plan on reading this book as well. Okay, and then the last book that I read was on my Kindle, which was Death of the Author by Nadia Okafor. I gave this book a 3-star. The reason why I gave it a 4-star, I gave it a 3-star is because in the beginning, I really enjoyed where we were taking the story, but then the story got really slow. And specifically when we got past the halfway mark, it was really hard for me to continue on with the story, honestly. And I don't have the physical copy with me currently, but that's a-okay, honestly. To be honest with you, I don't really remember much of this story. I remember that there is a story within a story. It's science fiction, I know that for sure, but I cannot remember like the nitty gritty details that much of the story. It is very much one of those books where like after a while I kind of forgot that I read the book, to be honest with you. Like I legitimately thought I forgot that I read the book, honestly, until I was gathering my supplies for this video, honestly. I'm thinking, and there's nothing coming to my brain. Like like the synopsis is not in my brain whatsoever. So I can't really tell you. I'm trying to think of what I did and did not like. Like the beginning was good, but then as we kept progressing on, it just got extremely slow. And it was just one of those things where it was a story that I'm just like, nah, this ain't for me. This is not for me, which sucks, honestly, because I really tried to like it. It just did not happen, honestly. It did not happen, which sucks, to be honest with you. Really does suck. But 3 stars, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. 3 stars is very much a middle of the road for me. But that is a wrap to my February reading. Let's go on to my March reading. Okay, so for my March reading, I read 3 books. One of them was a reread, while 2 of them were just regular reads. And one of them was one of my most anticipated reads of the year. But my first one that I read that was the reread was The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. So a little thing, honestly, a little story time. I knew that Sunrise on the Reaping was coming out in March, and I wanted to reread the trilogy and the prequel before I got to it. But I did not have enough time to be able to reread the whole series before Sunrise on the Reaping, which is a-okay. It's a-okay, honestly, you know? But I gave this one a 5 stars, reread, of course, so I think when I first read it, I gave it a 4 star, honestly, or like a 3. I think I gave it like a 3 star when I first read it in middle school. Like, this is one of the series that has like stood the test of time to some of my favorite series of all time. And I really, really love this. This is a deluxe version specifically. I have all the deluxe versions on my shelf all the way back there, honestly. But the reason why I got this one out is because it's just so gorgeous looking. It's just so pretty, like with the sprayed edges, of course. It's a gorgeous book. And I feel like everybody knows what the Hunger Games is about, so I don't really want to explain it that much. But it basically follows this girl named Katniss. She wakes up, not really wakes up, but like she is experiencing the reaping, which is basically where kids get to be tributes for the Hunger Games, which for the 74th Hunger Games, which is where we are at here, her little sister gets picked from the bowl, so she has to go compete in the Hunger Games, but Katniss is like, no, not my sister. So she volunteers in her place, and then another boy that she knows from the district gets picked, and they go to fight off in the Hunger Games and stuff like that, essentially. And I don't really want to give away that much, honestly, because it is such a complex story, but it's also one of the stories that I feel like people will be talking about for like years and years to come, mostly because this book series was written in like 2008, 2009, I think, as well too. It was it was like almost 10 years ago, but not quite, honestly. But still, it's such like interesting story, and there's so many crossovers to what's going on right now in real time with like propaganda and tyranny. And I recommend that everybody read this series at least once because it is so amazing, honestly. It is such an amazing book. It is such an amazing series in general, honestly. I want to reread the rest of the series again just because it is such an interesting series and there's such symbolism and everything. And I think Suzanne Collins is a mastermind. She is a great author, in my opinion. So 5 stars with the reread. I would 100% recommend that you read this trilogy.
And what I was trying to say after this as well was that you should read the original trilogy first, then go back and read the prequel of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then Sunrise on the Reaping, because when I looked at the actual footage, I had no idea what I was talking about, so I thought I'd come on here and clear the air. But basically, if you want to read these books for the first time, read them in the original trilogy, Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay, then go on to the prequel novels, which is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise on the Reaping.
All right, then the next one that I read was The Message by Tanish Coates. I never remember how to pronounce his name properly, but this is basically a memoir slash nonfiction. I read this for a class of mine this semester, actually, and I only got maybe about like halfway through before I wanted to listen to it and just like get it done. I don't really rate nonfiction that much, so you're not really going to get a rating from me personally. I don't think rating nonfiction is a good thing because mostly, how do I rate somebody's life? How do I rate somebody's experience? Like, how do I do that? Like, I don't know how to do that. I did it in the past a lot, but I feel kind of bad with giving like a number to a story that happened, you know? But this book is basically talks about like, he basically journeys through 3 resonant sites of conflict to explore how the stories we tell and the ones we don't reshape our realities. So the first like main parts is where he takes a trip to Africa, where he finds himself in 2 places of the city, which is one that new and another thing along that lines. And then he takes the reader to Columbus, South Carolina, where one of his books is getting banned. And then he goes over to Palestine to see what devastating like stuff is going on within the country itself, stuff along that lines. I don't really remember much about the story, but I feel like if I'm in a better headspace, I might remember it later, honestly, or if I reread it again, I might remember just a tad bit more, but I really just don't know like what else to think about this book, honestly. I would recommend it to people because I think it's a very powerful story. It was released in 2024. I believe. Yeah, it was released in 2024, I think in October of 2024, honestly. And it very much related to what is going on within the world as well, too. But no rating, but I do think that you should read it, honestly. So this is basically, I feel like this is almost everybody's most anticipated release of 2025, which is, of course, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Okay, now this is another prequel book to the Hunger Games trilogy. This one follows Hamish Abernathy in his games, and oh my god, it is one of the best books, honestly, within the Hunger Games series itself. Honestly, this is a 4.5 stars. I didn't quite think it was a 5-star yet because there was something that was missing, honestly, but I remember reading through this and I'm like, oh my god, Suzanne is gonna break my heart. But I didn't realize how much she was breaking my heart. I did not realize how much she was going to break my heart with this novel. Specifically, in the beginning of the book, she usually does 4 quotes related to what's going on. She did 4 quotes related to propaganda and questioning. I don't know about you guys, but there is a lot of stuff going on within the world about propaganda and such. And there is so much symbolism within this book, and there's so much hurt, there's so much heartbreak, there's just so much, honestly. And one of the key things that I really thought about when reading this book is how just the question of how many rebellions were being planned. How many failed revolution attempts did we have within this series, honestly? And it is so interesting to me. I could go into a whole video essay about this book, honestly, and the series itself. And honestly, I've thought about it too, because there is just so much to this story, to this world that relates so heavily to just so much that is going on within the real world itself. And it's crazy. It is so freaking crazy. This is my favorite book out of I of course have The Hunger Games, of course, but Sunrise on the Reaping really truly has my heart in so many ways. It's not even funny. There's just so much. And I would 100% recommend this series, but do not start with the prequel novels first. You need to start with the Hunger Games trilogy. I have a reel about my opinion on the Hunger Games novels and how you should read them. So go check that out on my TikTok and my Instagram and such like that as well too. But 4.5, really enjoyed this book. And this is the last book that I read in March as well. Okay, continuing on, the last of the reading wrap up, it's April. I read about 4 books in the month of April, and with the various things and such like that. Mostly I listened to most of them on audiobook because I could, and that was the easiest thing for me because I was going through finals and getting ready for the end of classes during that time as well. But the first book that I read was The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. I gave this a 3-star. I read this for a class as well too. It's a tiny book and I mostly listened to it, but I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it, honestly. It's an historical fiction based off of the real reform school that operated for 111 years and warped the lives of thousands of children, essentially. And it was just one of those things where it's such a crazy thing. I remember a little bit about this book, but if you ask me some of the character names and what some of the actual plot is of this book, I could not tell you, to say the least. But I do think that this is these are some people's form of historical fiction. It's not my personal thing of historical fiction. It's very interesting in my opinion. It was an interesting read, but I just don't remember much. I do not remember much of this story, unfortunately, which really sucks. But I do want to read a couple of his other novels as well too, like The Underground Railroad. I've heard lots of interesting things about that story as well too, but we shall see. 3 stars. I might recommend it to you. you if you like it, honestly, but I just did not really enjoy this book that much. The next book that I read was Divided Minds by Pamela Spiro Wagner and Carolyn Spiro. It is a memoir of these two twin sisters separated by schizophrenia. Specifically, Pam goes on to develop schizophrenia, and she hears disembodied voices and eventually suffering many breakdowns and hospitalizations. Basically, it's these two twins that are talking about schizophrenia and just talking about like their experiences through schizophrenia itself, honestly. And I also read this for a class as well too. I read this for my psychosis spectrum class. I already put my like bigger thoughts into this on my TikTok, so go feel free to watch that one as well, because there's so much that I could say, but I'd already be taking up so much time within this video essentially, and most of my thoughts I really conceptualize them over on my TikTok, so feel free to check it out. It tells you a lot more about schizophrenia and how exactly the disease works, because there's so many things that we don't know about schizophrenia. I mean, I do now, but there's so much that the general public doesn't know about early onset, like what the mechanisms are, what all the symptoms are, what the treatments are, how there's multiple treatment options and such like that. And this is just such an interesting way to look at how schizophrenia affects someone, especially when it comes to twins as well too, because twin studies are really, really influential within the space of studying schizophrenia as well too. Overall, it's just an interesting read, and it teaches you a little bit more about how schizophrenia presents in different people as well too. No rating for this because this is obviously nonfiction, and like I said, for the message, I don't really rate nonfiction that often. So, all right, and then the next book I read on my Kindle, but I did get the physical copy. It is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, and I gave that a 3.5 star. I read this for a book club book actually, and it's one of those books where I'm just like, oh, that was something, to say the least. And it's just one of those books where, like, I don't know how to feel. You know, it's one of those books where I just really do not know how to feel about the situation itself. And I like enjoyed it. I enjoyed the romance part, except for part of it, mostly all of it felt like insta love. And I just don't really like that trope very much. Insta love is not my favorite thing in the entire world. And it's just one of those things where I'm just like, huh, that's interesting. I don't really like that much, but that's a-okay, you know? And lots of my people in book club felt kind of similar. Some people really liked it. Some people loved it, honestly. Some people were kind of like me, where it was a little iffy, honestly. And there was a lot of like, what's it called? Modern day humor in there, which I don't mind modern day humor, but also at the same time, some of it was a little bit like, okay, what? And like some of it was like, okay, I get it. You don't need to keep milking this, honestly, you know? But it was just like, it was interesting, honestly. I do a really good job at putting my thoughts into this and my TikTok and such like that as well too. But would I recommend it? Yes. Same kind of thing with Kennedy Ryan. It really talks about some hard stuff, but also in a fun comedic way and such like that. And I feel like this one really talks like Say You'll Remember Me really talks about a really, really heavy concept that most people go through in some point in their life, or they have a family member who's affected by this as well too. Just please look at the author's note if you do plan on reading the book as well too. All right, friends, we're in the home stretch. Well, we were in the home stretch, but I have my final book that I read in April, and it's so disappointing to say this, but I really did not like it, and that was Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. I recently just did my review of this on TikTok. Oh, honey. I really, really did try to like Leather and Lark, but it's a 2.5 star. I really did not like this book very much, and I put all my thoughts into that as well too. It's getting near the end of the video. It's kind of hard for me to be able to put my thoughts cohesively essentially to this, but long story short, the romance not very good. In the beginning I thought it was going to be really, really good, but then it just went downhill from there. The marriage of convenience, I didn't really understand why it was so important for the story, because it really added nothing in my opinion. Like the marriage of convenience added nothing. That's not a spoiler. That's literally on the back of the book. So it's not a spoiler whatsoever. With the other colliding storyline, it was weird. It just did not, it was not good. It just, yeah, I really disliked the way that some of the smut scenes were done, and the whole there I felt that there was no chemistry between them. There was legitimately no chemistry in my opinion, and the way that the smut was, it just, I don't know. This never really happens to me that much, but sometimes when I'm reading smut, I sometimes get like a chill down my spine where I'm like, I don't really like that. But even though I didn't like this book, I still plan on continuing with the series because Scythe and Sparrow came out in February earlier this year, and I 100% plan to read it, honestly. I'm 100% reading that book because I know I'm gonna like Rose and Fion's story, honestly. I'm so disappointed that I did not like this book. I'm so disappointed I did not like this book, honestly. I really tried to, and I listened to this on audiobook. Well, actually, funny thing, when I was first reading it, it took me forever to get into it because it was just so slow for me to just read by myself that I added the audiobook on and did immersive reading while reading this, which is the only reason why I got a 2.5 and got a higher rating in general and why I finished the book in general, honestly. And it was just nuts. I just did not like it very much, honestly. My TikTok review does a little bit better job of putting those thoughts cohesively and such. But still, I did not like it, honestly. I really, really, really tried to, honestly. But this was the last book that I read in February as well, too. That this is the 18th book that I've read. But anyways, my camera's flashing that it's going to die soon. So I am going to end off the video here. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books and if you maybe agree or disagree with any of my thoughts of the books. Let me know if you guys want anything like that, honestly. And please go check out my other things on the internet. And if you came from that side of the internet, if you came from TikTok, if you came from Instagram, please share my YouTube, honestly, because I really want to get a platform started here on YouTube because I'm really wanting to do longer content for you guys, and that way I can do other stuff and interact with you guys on a more personable level as well too, rather than just short form as well too. Anyways, I love you guys so much. I hope you guys have an amazing day, week, month, and year. See you later, friends.